you're probably getting an announcement about that, but we are recording the webinar. We do expect to be able to share the presentations as PDFs. Probably take us a couple days to do that, but as long as you are registered via Eventbrite, you will be the people on the email list to receive those. So no, that will be coming a little bit later on. We are going to be the mute masters. Just know that if we're having any problems with mute, someone will be looking over that just in case you get a phone call and forget you may not have been on mute. Please use chat. So what we have for you today is about probably 40-45 minutes worth of presentations from James and Nathan. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold questions till the end, but you may use chat along the way to go ahead and type in a question. Depending on what you want to ask, they may cover it, but you're welcome to go ahead and put questions in chat. Ainsley Kelso, when we get done with the presentations, we'll go through and start with the first question she has. And if they've not been answered, go through and ask those out loud and let James and Nathan educate us a little bit more. So again, the Q&A will be at the end. Note that today we're going to have a slightly broader vehicle discussion than just the E-Transit and the F-150 Lightning. So there's a few other vehicles that can help us get to where we want to go. So James has thankfully added just a couple of other vehicles to talk about, and we'll explain why when we get to that point. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce both James and Nathan and give you a little bit of background information on them, and then let James get us started on the presentation. So James Morgan has been with Ford Motor Company 34 years in many different capacities and has served as government sales manager for 7 states for the last 8 years. He works with dealers to make sure they understand Ford's processes and programs as it relates to government sales, and meets with the many city, county, and state representatives to ensure they know the latest as it relates to Ford. James' wife is Ardith, and they have 2 grown children, Ginger and Drew. James and his wife live in Collierville, Tennessee, just outside of Memphis. And let me quickly introduce Nathan, and then you can go ahead and bring up your presentation, James, as you wish. So also, Nathan Jerry is with us, and he is an account manager for Ford Pro Charging, working with fleets at all stages of electrification to find the right software, hardware, and installation solutions for depot applications. He acts as a subject matter expert in charging for public and private fleets to help them find the right charging solution for them. Nathan lives in Durham, North Carolina, and primarily works with states in the central and eastern United States. So with that, I'll hand it over to James. James, thanks much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jonathan. First thing I want to ask is, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
And can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay. So many times, we've as many times as we've done this, maybe I'm not on mute or some technology problem or something, but this is just my first slide of my presentation. But thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Ainsley and Savannah, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me, even if it is just virtually. Happy to be here today. And yes, I cover 7 states. I cover Virginia, down to Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. And yes, I live just outside of Memphis, but soon I hope to say I live just outside of Blue Oval City, Stanton, Tennessee, which we'll talk about here in just a minute, but that's very close to where I live also. But this slide right here has my contact information. It's got my email address, and you'll notice there's no N in the email address. It's jmorgan12@ford.com. And my cell phone number there. I have several distribution lists. I've got probably over 1,000 people on distribution list, fleet managers from those 7 states. And I send out information, not all the time, because I know people don't want emails all the time, but I send out fleet distribution news about every other week, just to give people an idea of when we start taking orders, when we stop taking orders for all the different vehicle lines. So if you would like to be on that distribution list, and if you're like me, I get enough emails as it is, but if you would like to be on that distribution list, just shoot me an email. Or if you have questions after the presentation, just give me a call and be happy to talk to you. I also have Nathan Jerry on the phone with me, or on the call with us here. He's going to talk about the Ford Pro Charging, which is an important part of the EV puzzle. So let me go through the agenda here real quick. We're going to just talk about the Blue Oval City and some related investments that's here in Tennessee. Talk about, from a high level, our electrification strategy, and then talk about our 3 available electric vehicles right now, which are the Mustang Mach-E, the E-Transit, F-150 Lightning. We'll talk about all 3 of those. Then Nathan will come on and talk about Ford Pro charging. And then I'll come back and talk about a couple of hybrid vehicles we have. They're not all the hybrid vehicles we have. We have other hybrid vehicles besides Maverick and the Police Interceptor utility hybrid. But the Maverick is a new vehicle, a relatively new vehicle that is a perfect government vehicle. I'll talk to you about that a little bit. And then the police utility hybrid is just a rapidly growing segment of our police vehicles. So I just give you a little update on that, and then we'll have time for discussion. So the big news, as I'm sure you've all heard, is that we've leased 4,200 acres in West Tennessee, in Stanton, Tennessee to be exact, to build what has been called Blue Oval City. We're investing $5.6 billion in this facility and hiring 5,800 people, at a minimum, 5,800 people to build an all-electric truck here in Tennessee by 2025. It's going to take some time to get it, develop the infrastructure and get everything built, but that's what we're doing. It'll lead to a lot of great paying jobs also, just getting to that point, with all the construction and all that. So a lot of positive things for Tennessee there. So now keep in mind, we start building the F-150 Lightning, the all-electric F-150 that I'll talk about in just a little bit. We build those in Detroit, right next to our existing F-150 plant. We start taking orders for the electric F-150 in January, and we start building them in June of 2022. So not only are we investing this $5.6 billion and hiring 5,800 people here in Tennessee, but we're also investing $5.5 billion more we're building twin battery plants in Kentucky and hiring another 5,200 people there. This will be a joint venture with SK Innovations. We think it's smart to build the vehicles and key components here in the United States because we want to, we've all seen what's happened with the microchips, and I suspect everybody in this phone call is aware of it, or certainly has heard about it. And that's what happens when we rely on companies outside of the U.S. And so it's not just chips. There are other components produced overseas that are difficult to get due to shipping and COVID-related production losses overseas and all of that. So, so what I thought I would do is just, I guess since we're talking about chips, we just announced right before Thanksgiving, so things like November the 18th, a partnership with Global Foundries to produce chips for our vehicles. And we're going to do joint research and development on several different categories of chips. And so I just want to take a few minutes to take you through, for those of you that don't know, some of the reasons for the chip shortage. And I really do think a lot of you do know, but, and what I'm going to cover is not everything. It's just some of the key reasons for the chip shortage. Demand, and that's an obvious, obviously demand, but demand because more and more components need microprocessors. I mean, think about it, 15, 20 years ago, we probably had a few. Even 5 years ago, we might have had 20, 25 microprocessors, and today we've got hundreds, 200 or 300 microprocessors in the typical vehicle. Not just that, but we got Ring doorbells, body cameras, work from home electronic supplies. And when COVID hit, a lot of the folks that make these microprocessors moved to 5G technology, more profitable, and they expected actually with COVID hitting the demand to drop off for the more basic chips. So that started the problem. And then there was a fire at a company called Renesas. It's in Japan. It's a supplier of many of our components. We have 6 of our major suppliers that got their chips from this company in Japan called, as I said, Renesas. And that was in March of this year. And so it took them 4 or 5 months to get that plant back up and running again. That was actually a major undertaking because in these plants, you can't even have a hair floating around. You wouldn't believe the things they have to go to make sure that they are completely clean. So having a fire at a facility was a major undertaking, get it back up and running in five months. But they are up and running now. But what did all that create? So you have high demand, you have a fire at a major plant, hoarding. It's like toilet paper, right? So once everyone realized what was going on with microchips, the supply chain, the fire, some of the, I don't want to throw names out there, but I will. Toyota, I think, got a jump on it, and it just started a lot of hoarding of chips. which drove prices. Those microprocessors, I think I've been told, were like $6-7 a piece 2 years ago. Now they're $60-70 a piece. So it's really it's been difficult. So the effects of all that obviously production is the biggie. But imagine you own a company that builds seats or axles. You got 200 employees working for you, and you got your own suppliers, and you've got to worry about if Ford Motor Company or General Motors or Dodge or anybody calls you up and says, "Hey, I need you to not ship us any seats or axles next week." What do? Do you keep building seats and axles, or do you send your people home and hope they come back when you open back up? So it's created other supply issues. And then there's the issue of the military. Our military and China's military cannot get enough chips. 40% of the world's chips are made in Taiwan. I think most of you know what's going on with China and Taiwan right now. So there's a lot of concerns with that. But the good news on that is that particular company in Taiwan I'm speaking of is looking to build a plant in either Arizona or Texas here in this country, because they realize they need to protect their investments, and they're looking to have foundries here in the U.S. So that's just some of the information on the chips and what the investments we've made in this venture in Tennessee and also in Kentucky. So jumping right into the slides here, we are on our overall electrification strategy. We are playing to our strengths. We have a lot of, we are leveraging skill and technology. And what I'm referring to, there's a lot of things with that with our supply base. But we also have 3,500 Ford dealers, which, Tesla doesn't have that. And some of the others don't have that. We've got 3,500 dealers, and 2,800 of them are EV certified and rapidly growing. They all realize they need to get there. So we're building on iconic brands. We're not just, we're not building some low volume vehicle into electric vehicle. We're going with we started with the Mustang Mach-E. That's North American Utility of the Year Award winner. I'll go through each of these in a lot more detail, of course, but that was launched early this year. And then the backbones of the communities, the pickup, the F-150, the vans, those are our big volume vehicles. We have an all electric SUV coming out next year. It'll be a 24 model, but it's coming out next year. A lot going on with electric vehicles. So who cares? Why are we going electric vehicles? Well, it's a lot less expensive to operate, not to mention the CO2 emissions and all that, of course, but it costs about 1/3 to operate the vehicle of a gas vehicle. Electricity is just a lot cheaper. Now, will it always be? I doubt it. I don't know. But right now it's much cheaper, per mile if you put 130 miles worth of electricity in your vehicle versus the gas equivalent, it's a lot less expensive with electricity. Also, there's less moving parts. Most of you already know that. Less things to break, no oil changes, no transmission flushes, just a lot of savings from all of that. So that's kind of the high level on the electric vehicles. Talking about the Mustang Mach-E GT. Says order bank opened September of 21. That's actually for the 22 model. The 21 model has been open for quite some time now. I see them on the road. I've seen several right here in Colleyville. I've been in them. Great vehicle. We did a ride and drive in Charlotte, Atlanta, and Daytona Beach. And the one we did in Charlotte, a customer brought his Mustang Mach-E GT. The ride and drive was for the F-150 electric vehicle and the Transit electric vehicle. But a customer brought this and everyone wanted to drive it. So he actually let people drive his Mustang Mach-E GT. One other thing I'll say about this is we ran this particular vehicle at Michigan State Police testing in September. It passed all of Michigan State Police testing for police vehicle. It's still not police pursuit rated, but it passed all the tests. And when I say that, it's not designed to go across the median and chase down people and all that. But we do have some police departments that wanted us to test it, and they do want to buy one or two just to put a light bar on it and maybe use it for different public events or whatnot. But it does have Blue Cruise hands-free driving. If you don't know what that is, just go to YouTube, Blue Cruise hands-free driving. And it's what it sounds like, but it also tracks your eyes. So if you're talking to the guy next to you in the car, you're looking out the window to your left, it'll advise you to get your eyes forward and keep your hands on the steering wheel. But once you're just going down the road, you can take your hands off the steering wheel. So it comes in rear wheel drive or all wheel drive, powered by permanent magnet motors, which makes it a much more efficient vehicle. EPA estimated range of 300 miles on 2 different models. And that should say up to 300 miles because we also have a model that's 230 mile range. 3 unique drive experiences: Whisper, Engage, and Unbridled. Whisper is like a seamless drive, calm and quiet. Engage is kind of the middle of the road. It's balanced driving, fun and engaging. And then Unbridled, of course, is just as it sounds, exhilarating drive. So you have different torque lines on that. So plenty of storage, flexibility, batteries placed in the underside or inside the underbody. You can see a picture there. Space for 5 passengers and cargo. Drainable front storage space right there in the front. You see they got a bag in there, almost 5 cubic feet of storage space up front, and then 30 cubic feet of space in the back. If you put the rear seats down, you got 60 cubic feet of space in the back of that Mustang Mach-E. So your standard range is 230 miles. As I said, you can also get the 300 miles in the rear wheel drive configuration. Ford connected charging station adds an estimated range of 28 miles per charging hour on a 240 volt outlet. You can get that through Ford. I don't want to get into Nathan's presentation. He'll talk about charging. So, and you can also do a DC fast charging, go from 10% to 80% charge in 45 minutes. You'd also have access to Blue Oval charging network. A lot of people may not know this, but there are 19,000 charging stations in this Blue Oval charging network with probably 60 to 70,000 chargers within those stations. I started not to include this, but I thought I would just to let you know that if someone was to buy one for police usage, we actually did create a police modifier bulletin, PO33, that gives you some guidance if you're going to hook up lights and all that to the vehicle. One thing is they do recommend the Mustang Mach GT because it has the bigger battery and the capability to handle all the electrical needs for a police unit. Okay, the second vehicle, that's Mustang Mach-E. The second vehicle is the E-Transit. Order bank is open now. It's been open for some time now. Ideal use case, I'm going to move someone's picture here, move that up so I can see. It's not for everybody, and I'm always quick to tell people that. It's about 130 mile range. So it's for people that have, for agencies that have planned and predictable routes, it's ideal. Frequent stops and high idle rates, because when it's idling, it's not burning any fuel. It's just, it can run your air conditioner, it can run your other equipment, but it's not just running the engine. Obviously, if you're driving less than 100 miles, if it's got 130 mile range, you wouldn't want to run right up to that. But if you're running, under 100 miles a day, which we were surprised at how many agencies only do like 70, 80 miles a day. It's the majority actually. And then of course you need sufficient downtime to charge it. So if you're hot seating the vehicle, one person gets out, another person gets in it, stick with a gas engine, stick with the gas vehicle, because you need time to obviously charge it up. So on the E-Transit, we have 3 roof heights. We've got a small, a low roof, medium roof, and high roof. We got 3 different lengths. We've got it available in the cargo van, the cutaway, and the chassis cab. We do not have it in the passenger version just yet. That will come, but I don't know. I think someone asked that question in the chat. I'm not sure when they'll come out with a passenger version of that. Now, so this talks about the range. As I mentioned, I said 130, but it's 126 miles of estimated range, up to 487 cubic feet of cargo space. That's if you get the high roof and the long one, obviously. So that's the biggest one. It's got 266 horsepower, 317 foot-pounds of torque, and the 3,800 pounds max payload. So I tell people, if you are currently overloading a gas transit, payload on that is 4,200 pounds on a T350. If you're overloading or you got 4,200 pounds there, maybe you don't want the electric because the max payload is only 3,800 pounds due to the weight of the electric motors and the battery packs. All right, so and then next is the F-150 all-electric Lightning. Order bank, that says up there, I meant to change this actually because we were going to open it last month, but we put it off till January. The production starts June of next year. That hasn't changed. We had a lot of fun with our ride and drive on it. This is a good picture of the inside of the truck. You can see it's got all the space and all the things that you come to love about the inside of the F-150. No changes there. The dimensions and mounting points are the same. So if you're mounting something on the truck or a camper shell or something like that, the dimensions are the same on the vehicle. So that's a positive. We've got standard 4x4 with dual motors. That's with the 230 miles of range. You can see your horsepower is 426 horsepower, 775 pound-foot of torque, 2,000 pounds of payload, and 5,000 pounds of towing. Now, if you go with the optional extended range, you get 300 miles of range, much better horsepower, 563 horsepower, same torque, 775. Your towing is 7,700 unless you get the optional max trailer tow package. Payload, though, actually drops to 1,800 in the back of in the bed of the truck due to the weight of the batteries, and includes the 80 amp charger. So, what do we do with that engine space? Well, we've got 14 cubic feet of lockable storage. You'll notice it's got a very low front load there. So if you got to lift a heavy load to get it in there, it dips down. So it's a little bit higher than knee high to put your payload in the front of the vehicle. You put up to 400 pounds up there. It's lockable, lit. It's got a power open. It's dry, but it also, if you lift that up, you can wash it out. We did a promotional, piece for one of these, and it was the front was at a tailgate party. It was full of ice and beer and shrimp cocktail, and it looked really cool. Actually, I can imagine showing up at a football game with that. It looked pretty interesting. This time, I just mentioned the bumper height loading. You've got 4 110-volt power points up front. And then in the back, you've got Pro Power on board with standard 2.4 kilowatt plugs back there. And you can get the available 9.6 kilowatt. I've got a demo. It's not the electric vehicle. It's a hybrid. I got a hybrid F-150 that's got that Pro Power on board. And it is really cool. It's amazing how much stuff you can hook up back there and run, particularly with the 9.6 kilowatt. I mean, it's got the 240 plug and then 4 of the 110s or 120s, and you can run a lot of stuff off that. I tried to hook up, I had a bunch of stuff in the garage and I hooked it up, and I tried to trip the breaker. There's a breaker switch there, and if you overload it, it'll trip it and you have to unplug something. But with the 9.6, it's difficult to get to that point. You could literally run a house on that. I think for a lot of coastal communities and well, anywhere that, if you have a natural disaster of some sort, it'd be a pretty cool way to get power when you need it for emergencies. You got a 12-inch screen with Sync 4 and connected navigation. Software update capability. So used to, when you had a software update on your vehicle, you had to take it to the dealership and they'd hook it up, and run the update. And then you'd have to, you had to leave it there for a little while and come back and get it. Then we came up with modems on the vehicles. And so you could do it as long as you were near Wi-Fi. Well, now we have the Wi-Fi that you can get on the truck. So I set it up on my vehicle. I set it up for 1 a.m. on every Wednesday. I get any updates that are out there and it automatically does it. I don't know it. I don't have to take the vehicle anywhere. It does it automatically. Ford Pass. Ford Pass on your smartphone. Ford Pass is not unique just for the electric vehicles. It's on all of our vehicles now. I've got it on both vehicles out in the driveway, mine and my wife's. And you can lock it, unlock it from anywhere. You can start it. You can check the status of your fuel or charge if you do have an electric vehicle. You can see where the vehicle's at, which is, can be very helpful. And then they have, if you have an electric vehicle, they have a part of that app called Power My Trip. And you can see what it does there. But if you put in where you're going, the system will route you from where it knows where you're at. It routes you on the best route to go by the charging stations as it estimates you're going to need them. So it helps you find charging stations as you go. Also has built-in scale on the electric F-150. As I said, you could have 400 pounds up front, 2,000 pounds in the back, or if it's the optional 300 range, is 1,800 pounds of payload in the back. But there's a scale that will show you if you're overloaded, which could prove to be very helpful. And then we have very strong residuals and an 8-year, 100,000-mile battery warranty. The battery and actually the electric motor on these electric vehicles, 8-year, 100,000-mile warranty. So that's pretty cool. So Nathan, I'm going to stop sharing And if you don't mind taking over, I would appreciate it.
I'm on it.
Thank you.
All right. Can everybody hear me and can everybody see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good to go. Hi, everyone. As I've been introduced several times now, I'm Nathan Jerry with Ford Pro Charging, here to talk with you about our charging solution side of things. I have my email right here, NGYORI. The benefit of a last name like mine is you get a clean email at Ford.com. So if you want to reach out, I have it there. I also have it on my last slide if you're struggling to get a pen and paper out right now. Let's get started. So as James has talked about, Ford has made this huge investment into the EV space right now. We're actually the only North American solutions provider that will combine light-duty commercial vehicles, light-duty commercial electric vehicles, chargers, a single source for design, build services, and OEM-grade telematics into one solution. We know that putting together a charging solution for an electric fleet right now can feel disjointed, right? There's a lot of different OEMs for chargers, for software. Who do you want to do an installation for you? How do I actually plan this EV transition? So what we've done is we've built an end-to-end charging solution so we can take care of all that for you and keep your business moving so you don't miss a beat in operations. What that includes is planning your EV transition, obviously the EVs that we just talked about, and as well as multi-make support. So if you have multiple types of vehicles, being able to support all of them with our chargers and our software. Integrated vehicle telematics and charging, turnkey design, build, and utility planning, charging, financing, etc. So let me show you what the actual ecosystem looks like. So there's three different main types of charging. We have depot charging, home, and public charging. I specialize in the depot charging space, so that's what I'm going to focus on, but I'll touch briefly on public and home charging options. Public charging is all about the Blue Oval Charge Network. So like James said, we have over 63,000 charge ports across North America right now as part of the Blue Oval Charge Network. That's through, I believe it's currently at 7 network providers. So ChargePoint, EV Connect, Flow, and several others, all a part of it. With public charging, we have centralized billing. So if you have a fleet vehicle that's using public charging, you're able to get that billed to one centralized place instead of having to go through an expensing process or whatever may happen there. And then vehicle-based public charger activation. So not needing to put in a username or swipe a card on the actual charger, but being able to just plug it into the vehicle and activate it that way. With home charging, so we have some charging hardware. There's the Ford Connected Charge Station. That's a 48 amp charger that's out now. We're also coming out with an 80 amp home charger that's coming with the F-150 Lightning extended range. So that's what we have for hardware for home solutions. There's financing options available, incentives, although tax incentives more so apply to personal vehicles and personal charger installations. And then fleet homes install concierge. So we have a partnership with Qmerit to help handle home installation. If you go onto parts.ford.com, you'll be able to find the Ford Connected Charge Station, and it'll link you to Qmerit's website to find installation services in your area or get a quote. We're offering a white glove approach with home installation. So if you want someone to take care of all of it for you, we're able to come in, do the driver evaluations, right? Picking what drivers should get a home install, ordering the chargers, take care of the installation, all of that for you. With that being said, depot charging is what I specialize in. So the first part of that is vehicle telematics, right? That's not only important on the road, knowing how much energy you have, knowing, when do I need to make sure I get to a charger to top off my vehicle, but also informs our charge management software to know how we want to charge your vehicles when they're actually at the depot. That charge management software helps with charge scheduling and depot energy management. And then some other aspects of depot charging are warranty, service, and maintenance, design and build services, utility planning interface, charging hardware. So we have some level 2 and level 3 commercial charger options that I'll touch on briefly in a minute, as well as financing options as well. So in terms of what we're actually offering from a depot standpoint, there's 3 main offerings that we're providing. So one is just depot software. So if you already have chargers set up or want to go with a different charger vendor, that's totally fine. We still want to have a conversation with you around charge management software. I would encourage you as you're looking to electrify your fleet, even if it's not with us, charge management software is really something that's going to be critical in making sure your operations go smoothly and making sure you're not incurring high energy costs, all of that. If you don't currently have a charging hardware solution, but you think you know what you want to do in terms of an install, you have a partner there, or you can do it in-house, we have a hardware plus software option. So those two things coming together, we'll only sell our hardware with our software, but being able to get both of those things from us, we can bypass any sort of integration process that you might need to go through if you're getting software and chargers from separate vendors. And then last is that end-to-end depot design, deploy, and operate. So we can do the design and install, we can provide you with the charging hardware, and we can give you the software all together in one package. So let me talk about the software side of things. So this is the Electrify Command Center. I don't think I said this at the top, but Ford actually acquired the company Electrify back in June of this year. That's where I come from. They specialize, or we specialize in charge management software. So that's why it's the Electrify Command Center. So it's a single dashboard for fleet and charging management designed for hands-free EV operations. When I usually talk with fleet managers doing a demo of our software, I'll start with, what you have to do as a fleet manager is nothing. Our algorithm is going to take care of how we actually want to charge your vehicles, and you just need to step in if something goes wrong with the charger or if you need to make adjustments. It's the main value proposition of charge management software is making sure your vehicles are charged and ready on time and at the lowest cost. So that benefit number one, fleet readiness, that's the on time part. That's our number one priority. Your vehicle's got to do what they got to do. So we're going to make sure that they have the energy to do it at the start of their shift. Potentially saving on charging costs is another part of that. So there's a couple ways we do this. One is just making sure that we charge at lower utility rate times. So those off-peak times where energy is cheaper, charging at those times. Also shifting and spreading out demand. All your vehicles come in, plug into chargers. We don't want them all pulling energy at once, right? So figuring out, okay, these vehicles don't need to leave until this time so they can wait on charging, and spreading out the energy demand that way. That's helping you avoid demand charges, right? And again, making sure we're charging at those lower cost times. The last part on potentially saving on charging costs is scaling your infrastructure. So using some sort of charge management software can keep you well below the transformer capacity that you have at your site. So we're able to maximize your infrastructure. We're able to charge more vehicles on your current transformer setup without needing an upgrade, which, as you probably know, is a time-intensive and high-cost process. Couple more things on charge management software. So real-time vehicle and charger alerts, knowing when your vehicle is going to be ready, knowing when it is ready. So being able to go into the software, click on a vehicle, it says, we're at a 25% charge right now. We need to get to a 60% charge to be ready for the day. This is going to be done at this time, and being alerted when it is done. Detecting faults and tracking service items. So you need to know when something's gone wrong with one of your chargers, right? So we're able to give you push notifications that tell you when something has happened, read error codes and faults for you right in the software. So you can read right there, oh, it's this type of error. And then being able to prioritize those different faults that may come up. So say, I only want to know about this type of error at the end of the week or at the end of the month. If this type of error comes up, I need to know right away, being able to customize it that way. And lastly, being able to actually track that service items. So knowing, okay, this is unassigned, this is in remediation right now, this has actually been closed. And then the last part is centralized view of operations. So having one place to be able to view every aspect of your electric fleet. All the vehicles that you're using, even if they're non-electric vehicles, having that in the software, all the different routes and schedules that you're on, the different users, so drivers, fleet managers, admins, technicians, et cetera. One place to house all the information that's relevant to your electric fleet. It's a software as a service model for CMS. So we're looking at a per charge port per month cost for that, with the ability to pay annually if that's something that's preferred. Next up is charging hardware. So I'm going to briefly go over the different commercial chargers that we have. Again, I mentioned for home charging applications, we have the 48 amp Ford connected charge station, as well as an 80 amp that's coming. So these are our depot application chargers. We, once again, have a 48 amp charger that's available for depots. Easy authentication without need of RFID. Increased cable length, so we're looking at a 25-foot cable, cellular, Wi-Fi, and Ethernet standard, and then a couple of different ways to mount it. So a wall mount is always an option. It doesn't cost any additional hardware to just mount it on a wall, but we have some accessories as well. So a basic post, it's just a shorter single charger post. single post with a cable retractor. It's taller than the basic post, and then a dual post with cable retractor, able to mount 2 chargers and have cable retraction, just like is in this picture here. Next is the 80 amp charge station. So very similar to the 48 amp, except obviously a more powerful charger. For e-transit applications, it actually it won't charge any faster on the 80 amp as it is currently. So the 48 amp is really the right charger for that, unless we're looking towards the future and when the e-transit maybe has a better battery capacity. So the only difference really here is bidirectional power, another way that getting an 80 amp charger is sort of future proofing. And then the same accessories here. So the basic post, single post with cable retractor, and the dual post with cable retractor. All these chargers as well are standard J1772 charge plug. So any standard electric vehicles will take that. Next, a couple of DC fast charging options. So this is the standalone DC fast charger. Comes in a 60 kilowatt, 120 kilowatt, or 180 kilowatt option. Then we have a modular scalable system that we can do as well with chargers. So these are the power cabinets. They also come in a 60, 120, or 180 kilowatt options with the ability to scale as well. So we have 30 kilowatt power modules that we can add to the power cabinet. So if you need 90 kilowatts, if you need 150, if you need up to 240, we're able to do that as well. You're able to do up to 3 dispensers for doing simultaneous charging and up to 4 dispensers for sequential charging. So simultaneous charging meaning your vehicles are all pulling energy at the same time, right? Both plugs are distributing the same amount or different amounts based on what they need, or sequential charging where it'll charge this vehicle for a certain amount of time and then switch over to this one. The last part I need to touch on for chargers is these 2 different types of dispensers. So this top dispenser is the more industrial one. It's the one that we recommend the most. It's a simple design, just a basic industrial dispenser with two charge ports included on it. Then if you need something that's a little bit more attractive, we have this other dispenser. It's taller and sleeker, has a touch screen as well. Typically in these conversations, we say a touchscreen is another point of fault, right? And it mostly does things that our charge management software already does, and it's at a slightly higher cost. So we mostly recommend this industrial dispenser, but if you want the commercial dispenser, that's an option that we have as well. Lastly, design and install an operation solution. So this is the big piece of the end-to-end solution. If you're exploring a turnkey solution, you want someone to come in and take care of the infrastructure side of things for you, we can do that. So we'll come on, do a fleet and site assessment, come up with a charging plan, site design and engineering, permitting, ordering the chargers, all those different steps. We're looking at an expected lead time of about 6 to 12 months for one of these projects. And this is something that's going to be available early 2022. That's it on charging solutions. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to schedule a meeting with me or just shoot me an email. Again, there it is right here, ngyori@ford.com. This space is new to a lot of people, right? So I just encourage you and say there are no dumb questions. Whatever stage you are in electrification, whether it's I know I need to buy some EVs, but haven't really made any moves there, or we have 50 on order and are trying to figure out how we're going to manage all of them. All questions are valid, and I would just love to hear from you and have a conversation around charging. And with that, James, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Wonderful. Let me see. There we go. Good. Make sure okay. I'm gonna have to go through. I think I had your presentation up here also. So let me just go through your slides real quick. I didn't want to cut over too quick, because I want to make sure everyone had a chance to get your email address there. But thank you. Can you see that, Nathan?
Yep.
Okay, good deal. All right. So we'll take questions in just a few minutes. I saw a couple of questions in the chat, but I did want to just quickly go through the Maverick and the Police Interceptor utility. Both hybrids. They're not 100% battery electric vehicles, but they are. This Maverick is the perfect government vehicle. It's a hybrid standard. It's 20,000. It's actually 19,995 MSRP on this vehicle. I know the hybrid's selling so well, I think we're just about out of hybrid availability on this, but we also have the EcoBoost available on this Maverick vehicle. So I thought I'd go through it real quick. The 2.5 liter hybrid, 40 miles per gallon city, 1,500 pounds payload. You can see the towing capacity. You don't need me to read all that to you, but it really is you see what you get there for a $20,000 fleet truck. For a lot of people that maybe were using a Fusion before or a smaller vehicle, you might find this to be a very economical, multi-purpose type vehicle that can work in your fleets. This talks about the 4,000 pounds towing available with the EcoBoost. So if you get the EcoBoost, that's the 2-liter EcoBoost you get it with all-wheel drive, is even more capable. It comes standard with the flex bed, and it's a cool bed because you can see they've got the 2x4 or what is that, a 2x8 or 2x6. You can segment your cargo. You've got all kind of tie downs in there, D-rings. The tailgate actually obviously goes up and down, but there's also a middle setting where you can set that tailgate to be halfway up. And if you had a piece of drywall or sheetrock or a big board, you could lay it across the wheel wells and lay it flat across that tailgate if it's halfway down. So just some different little cool way they've got that pickup bed segmented. So this just shows you kind of how it's set, how it lines up against the Ranger. The Ranger is just a little bit taller. It's what is that, 2.5 inches taller, and the length is about 10 or 11 inches longer. So that kind of gives you an idea of how it lines up against the Ranger, and you can see it there against the F-150 and the Super Duty. Plenty of room in the back. You can fold the seats up. You can put a lot of stuff back there. This just again shows you the role when you look at the lineup of vehicles. There was a need for a smaller pickup. There were people that wanted a very affordable $20,000 truck. This shows you the overall width and length of the vehicle versus the Ranger and the F-150, and the tow bandwidth of the vehicles. And then the other hybrid I just want to talk about, again, these are not all of our hybrids, was the Police Interceptor Utility. We have found the hybrid to be the perfect vehicle for police. They do so much idling. So fuel consumption and fuel expenditures are way down. We've had this vehicle out for a couple of years now, and we did our own studies, but now we're starting to get studies from our agencies, and they're telling us, they're real world examples with what fuel's costing today and all that. So you have reduced fuel consumption rather, reduced CO2 emissions, obviously, less engine use. The engine is not, sometimes they idle for hours, and that's wear and tear on the engine. In fact, many people have said idling is rougher on the engine than driving because it's not getting all the airflow. So, less maintenance. Your brakes have regenerative braking, so that's putting a lot of that energy back to the battery, and less wear and tear on your brakes. So increased officer and vehicle uptime. Believe it or not, have actually somebody asked me on a hybrid, how long of an extension cord comes with it? I think they were kidding. I don't know, but you don't have the range anxiety you have with a plug-in vehicle. It's got I think it's 400 miles when you fill it up. But so we do have a fuel savings scenario, and we have on our FordPoliceInterceptor.com site, there's a place for you to go in and plug in your own numbers. I'm going to show you just an example here of the Police Interceptor. Our base engine is the 3.3 all-wheel drive, the 3.3 liter. That's a gas vehicle. And that's still the majority of our sales, but we're seeing more and more people go the hybrid as they understand the real savings. The hybrid costs a little more up front, but you make it up mostly in the first year, because I think it's about $2,500 more than the base, but you get about 17 miles per gallon just driving. And that shows you, using 20,000 miles a year, how many gallons you consume versus 24 miles per gallon on the hybrid. So you save 343 just driving the vehicle, but your real savings is at idle. And it's interesting how much idling police actually do, whether it be just sitting on the side of the road or running into a restaurant to get something. They keep their vehicles running, obviously, as most of you know, because they've got computers and other equipment. And if an emergency happens, they got to be ready to go. So a regular police vehicle, whether it be a Ford, a Dodge, a Chevy, whatever, a non-hybrid, takes about a gallon of gas to idle for 2 hours. So it's, as it says there, 0.465 gallons of fuel per hour. So it's about a gallon every 2 hours. and that our estimate was 2 shifts per day. Some people hot seat the vehicles going all the time, and many people have a take-home program where the officers take it home. So you can do your own math on that website depending on how you use the vehicles. But based on this analysis, the 3.3 uses 1,663 gallons at idle. And with the hybrid, it takes 0.20. So you can idle for 5 hours on a hybrid with a gallon of gas. All right, so it saves you a lot of money with all the idling the police do. So potential savings there of 933 gallons of fuel per year. Do the idling and the driving together, it's 1,200 gallons of fuel per year per vehicle. That's about $3,500 in potential savings at $2.75 a gallon. As you know, gas has gone up, but that's when we did the analysis a while back. So most people focus on that, but there's other people, probably clean cities, that look at potential 25,000 pounds of CO2 emissions reduced per vehicle per year. That's huge. So I just want to share that with you. And I was going to ask if you have any questions. In fact, I'm going to, let's see here. Well, yeah, if you have any questions, somebody help me. Well, there's the chat up there.
Sure. And we'll help, James. If Ainsley, if you'd get ready to go back to, I think Joe's question got answered, but maybe it's Gary Franks that was the next one on the list. And while you do that, just I wanted to say something quick. After we run through these questions, we're going to let fleet managers ask questions first. I've seen a few that are on this call, so we want to let you guys ask other questions. I've actually got a bunch of questions myself, but then folks that are not fleet managers, we will let you guys ask questions. So if you're a fleet manager and you've not put a question in chat, if you will just raise your hand using the hand raising tool, then we will get to your question in just a minute. But go right ahead, Ainsley.
All right, thank you. The first question I do believe was answered, but let's just go ahead so everybody can hear it again. When will Ford make the e-Transit for passengers? About 15 people.
Yeah, I answered it, but it wasn't probably the answer they wanted to hear. And that is, I really don't know when they're going to have the passenger version. I do know that that's been a common request of me right now. Since they just are starting to build the electric transit, they're kind of sticking to a set specs, and it's just the T350. It's not on the T150 or T250. It's just the cargo vans, the cutaway, and the strip chassis. The passenger van will come. We're looking to have everything we build available for electric. I've heard different dates, 28, 30, whenever, but everything will be available in an electric version before you know it. But we don't expect, even with everything available electric, we don't expect but about 40% by 2030 to be 40% of our sales to be electric vehicles, but we expect to have it available on everything. But when we'll have it on the 15 passenger version, I honestly just don't know.
All right, we had another question. I'm not sure exactly what this is referring to, but I believe at one point you mentioned a body camera, and somebody asked what brand body camera were you referring to?
What all I was saying is I was talking about the increase in demand for chips, and I said it's not just vehicles that we have a demand increase in chips, it's everything. It's Ring doorbells and body cameras. And I have a brother-in-law that has he owns a gun dog supply. In fact, if you go to Google and you look for some stuff for your dog, you'll see gun dog supply. He says he can't get shot collars for dogs, like for training purposes. He said they had to have a microchip in them, and there's a shortage of them. He can't get them right now. It's really amazing the things that have microchips in them now that didn't even 10 years ago. But I was just making an example. I was just talking about body cameras in general.
Okay, gotcha.
That's real quickly, Ainsley. You saying what you did about Taiwan, James, makes me realize why I think China wants to make sure that nobody interferes with what they believe is their own. So I was good to hear that company may be building something in the U.S. because I hope they work on that quickly before China decides to get really pissed off.
I know it's coming. This isn't. I know this is recorded, and I worry about saying things sometimes. It's I'm not saying this as a Ford rep. I'm just saying I'm afraid something's going to happen over there sooner rather than later. Yes. And it worries me greatly. So the company there is looking to build facilities. They actually are building a facility in Japan too. So there's other markets that need those chips, and Taiwan's been inexpensive, and they've got everything there that they need, but they're starting to realize now we better have some facilities somewhere else. And our own government is incentivizing that also. We realize the importance of these chips. I mean, look what's going on.
All right, so we have another question from a local fleet manager in regards to the F-150, asking, is it being considered an 8-foot bed in the truck?
Right. Well, I haven't seen the specs yet. I know they don't have the 5.5-foot bed. I would not be surprised if they don't have the 8-foot bed starting out, although they might. I haven't seen the specs. They come out with specs in January. They'll come out with the pricing in January. I do not think they'll have an 8-foot bed coming out of the gate. And I'll tell you, it's interesting. We have got probably over 100,000 people. When you take retail, commercial customers, utilities, and our government agencies that are wanting this truck. And the volume is not going to be there. When we start building in June, it's going to be a short model year. We'll build about 4 months of the 22 model F-150 electric, and then we go into the 23 model. And volume will ramp up. I've seen some numbers, and I hesitate to say what they are, but there'll be relatively low numbers this year. And in fact, I've actually advised some of my government accounts that have said that they want to, budget money now for those vehicles. I've said, be careful of that, because you can budget money for it now, but you may not have it spent in time, because by the time we open that plant in June, start building them. And then, we always, whenever we build a new vehicle, we test it extensively after we start building them. So it might be September before the first ones actually get in the customer's hands. And I just don't want to mess up people's budgets at this point. I encourage a lot of people maybe to try to order 1 or 2, get them in your fleet, see how they work, see how you like them. And then as we ramp up production, so they're not going to make it overly complex. They're not going to have something for everybody. They're going to just get it going and get them built. They've got so much demand. They're going to build what they can, and then they'll expand it from there.
All right, and so these two questions kind of go together, and I think you may have already answered one of them. How soon will the order bank open for both the F-150 Lightning and the Maverick?
The Maverick is open now. You can order a Maverick today. We've had that open for probably 4 or 5 months, I think. So you can order a Maverick now. And the F-150 Lightning, the order bank will open in January. We'll have pricing available. And what you'll want to do, though, for those, it's easy for me to say that, but I know many of you, it has to be on state contract. So once we have pricing, then the bids can go out and we can start, but the dealers will have the vehicles, they'll have pricing, and we can give government price concessions. But many of you have to buy off of a contract. You can't just, decide you want to buy something and buy it, negotiate the price with the dealer. I guess there's rules and all that. So the state agencies, I talked to Bob Williams. In fact, Bob may be on the call, I don't know, but there's, we'll work to get it on the state contract as soon as possible.
Okay, the next question says, what type of conversion is in the electric vehicles to install emergency lighting?
Well, on the Mach-E, there's that bulletin. It talks about, you do it the same way you do it on today's vehicles, using the regular battery. You don't use the battery that powers the vehicle, to power your lights and all that stuff. Now, on the police vehicles, we have, modules and wiring harnesses and things like that specifically for police usage. On the Transit and the F-150 Lightning, it will not have those wiring harnesses. That doesn't mean you can't hook up stuff to it, but it's going to take some, figuring out how to wire that. It's not built into the vehicle to hook up light bars and push bumpers and, all that stuff.
All right, the next question says, do you know what the MSRP will be for the F-150 Lightning?
I don't. I've heard quite a few things. I really hate to guess because that's what I'd be doing. I know a dealer in Virginia has it on state contract. He guessed $50,000. That's what he bid. I said, well, that's bold. But he said, well, I'm going to take my chances. I want at least, I know nobody's going to be competing with me. So he went ahead and took a chance and said 50,000. That may very well be close, but they haven't approved it yet. Until our CEO signs off on pricing, it's just a guess.
And it looks like Jay, who asked the question, also dropped a link in the chat about MSRP. So if anybody wants to take a look at that, that's in the chat. And then there was one other...
Keep my information, or just stay tuned, because that will be available in January. You can also check with a Ford dealer in January, probably be mid to late January, but we should have pricing out at that time.
All right, and there was one other question in the chat that Nathan did answer, but just for the recording, I'm going to have Nathan answer it aloud. Is the J1772 bidirectional charging only compatible with e-Transit?
Yeah, and so this actually leads into an important part of Ford Pro charging as well. We try as much as possible to be multi-make and OEM agnostic. So whatever vehicles that you have, we're able to charge with our chargers. Whatever types of software that you're using with managing your fleet, we want to try and integrate that into our software. To address the question directly, so it's compatible with any EV that has a standard J1772 plug and supports bidirectional charging. The E-Transit doesn't actually currently support bidirectional charging, but the F-150 Lightning will.
And Ainsley, let me jump in with a couple of questions that I think are fleet related. I don't see any hands raised from some of the fleet managers I know of, but is there going to be any preference for the 150 in fleet versus general consumer sales once they start going on sale, James?
Yeah. Yes, they allocate it out. Retail, in fact, we do that on all of our vehicles now. It's actually kind of interesting. I had a conversation with someone earlier today about that who didn't understand it, but our plants have really three customers. Our plants have three customers: the retail side, the commercial government side, and daily rental. That's their three customers, and they each get allocation. And so within that commercial government sector, let's say they build 5,000 electric F-150s after next year. Let's just say that's all they build. Now, that's just a number I made up. But so retail might get 2,000, commercial government might get 3,000, or 2,800, and rental may get 200. Just so they can have some in some daily rental fleet so people can try them out. But they divvy that up, and it's so that it's separate. It's handled completely separate, and the way they're built. Like sometimes Ford will shut off ordering for fleet, but you can still order retail, or vice versa, because they're like different business units.
Okay. Then the next question, I know from working with some fleets that, most fleets have gasoline and diesel. They have their own depot. If you look at a municipal example, they may have 4 or 5 scattered around the city, depending on the size of the city, but they're used to using some systems that go with card readers, et cetera, for those vehicles to get into a centralized system so that they can see gasoline, diesel use, allocate it to different vehicles, be able to track that information. And this may fall more to you, Nathan, but as we start getting into electric vehicles, it's such a totally different fuel. You don't necessarily think of some way to be able to connect it to the same system. So there's a way for them to look in the same set of data instead of having to look at something new and separate for electric vehicles as for where they'll be able to track how much fuel and kilowatt hours they're using and what the cost of that was over a year, for example. Have you heard anything about trying to integrate with current systems so that they don't have to end up with those two systems?
Yeah, so again, for our charge management software, where you can have a centralized view of all your operations, it can house information on your electric vehicles as well as your ICE vehicles. We've enabled it to have an open data flow in and out of the software. So other pieces of software or technology that you're using to manage your fleet, to track things like that with your other vehicles, is something that we can work with you to integrate. I don't want to make promises that our technical team is going to give them a headache, right? But we've enabled our platform to be able to accept data and share data out as well if you want to use some other type of platform. So we'll do the best we can to integrate with other systems that you're using.
All right, Jonathan, we have I know we're running it low on time, but we do have a couple other questions in the chat, and it looks like Kent also has his hand raised for a question. So Kent, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you so much. You partially answered a little bit, Nathan, but I have questions about Electrify Command Center and your Ford Pro charging. And it's about, you say you're multi-make agnostic, and I like that. I was thinking about the point of view of the fleet manager. What about the guy who has different makes of EVs in the fleet? You know, a big truck for deliveries and small vehicles to go out and test things. Or what about an agricultural station or something like that? Can the Ford Pro charging of the Electrify Command Center handle different makes of EVs? And could it turn them on and turn them off for charging to take advantage of time of use rates? And to protect the battery, like for example, I only charge my battery up to 80%, stuff like that. Go into a little more detail if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, you're right. So if you have, some Ford vehicles, but you also have some Chevy Bolts, some Nissan Leafs, if you have some much larger vehicles that are also electrified, right, we can put all of that in our software. And what it'll do is we have all those vehicles registered and all the information on them, including their battery capacity. And we also look at the typical routes and schedules that vehicle is taking. Now, we can do one of two things with our software. We can either set up time and energy controls for your fleet. So say we only want to charge vehicles in this time frame, and we only want to charge everything up to this battery percentage, like you were saying, only charge it up to 80%, as well as taking into consideration the transformer capacity. Or we can use our algorithm to do that work for us. So it'll look at, okay, these vehicles need to go, travel this much each day, and these are the typical weather conditions and the topography and all that, and determine what we charge each individual vehicle at that way. Does that answer your question?
Jonathan,
Thank
I
you.
apologize. I have got to run. I've got a hard stop at 2. I've got an allocation meeting I've got to be on with some executives, so I apologize. Nathan, if you don't mind kind of helping finish it up, I appreciate it. And Jonathan, so sorry to leave. I should have mentioned this at the beginning. I've got to be on this other call, but thank you so much for having me on the call.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. So yeah, let's handle a few other questions if you want to go to those, and we can, it sounds like Nathan might be able to answer these last two. Ainsley.
Yeah, Nathan, I'm not sure if you can answer this one or not, but we have someone wondering if Ford is formulating plans to roll out any kind of technician training outside of the Ford dealerships.
Yeah, and I will say, unfortunately, James holds a lot more of that information around training and vehicles and stuff like that. So I'm not sure, but I think that would be a great question to just shoot an email to him about and follow up with him.
Yeah, if you have James's email, that would be a good question to email him with. And then this other question I do think you can answer. It says the bi-directional charging, is it going to be available across all specs and battery sizes, or will it just be available to the extended battery?
Yeah, so my understanding is the F-150, whether it's a standard range, the extended range, whatever customizations you have, will all be bi-directional. We'll all have that capability.
But it's when you get into the charging stations that the 80 amp will be the only one that will do bi-directional, the 48 amp won't.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Okay, all right.
And Nathan, could you also, we have somebody asking what was James's email address. Do you have it off the top of your head that you could give us again?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's jmorga12, but I'm gonna just double check in my email real quick to make sure I have the right one.
Yeah, I'm typing it in there. I believe it is the same, but just, yeah, he said it doesn't have the N and it had a 12 in it and it has his letter at the front. So first name letter, jmorga12@ford.com.
Yep, and I'm gonna type it in the chat right now.
There we go.
We got a couple of them, so thanks for coming together.
All right, perfect.
Anybody have any final questions? I know we've lost James, but one of the things I will let those that are still here know is that we have started discussions with James about trying to get both the E-Transit and a Lightning to be able to go across Tennessee to let fleets directly see these. Obviously, it's going to take a little while. These things are in huge demand. They're not going to start building them until July next year. So it may very well be 2023. With Blue Oval City coming to Tennessee, hopefully we can, maybe it was a good thing that James had to leave. Maybe we can put a little pressure on him and say, look, we got people right here where you're going to be in good old Tennessee. So we are working on that. We'll see what we can pull together. Obviously, many of you may know that those vehicles went on this tour that he spoke about briefly. Is that tour actually still going on, Nathan, or is it finished? Do you know?
Yep, the EV Roadshow wrapped up towards the end of October in Houston. So I hope we do another one. It was a lot of fun. I got to ride in the F-150 Lightning myself, and I'm not a truck guy, but it almost made me a truck guy. So hopefully we'll do another one, but that one's unfortunately finished.
All right. Okay, everybody, we appreciate it. We will, it will take us just a little bit of time to get these presentations. And while you're still here, Nathan, I noticed a few things that were notes on your slides. Do you think we may not be able to use yours, but we can probably get James in terms of letting people know, showing them these?
Yep, so I'll send you a PDF version. All the slides that I have in there should be available to share. I'll do some double checking just to make sure, but we should be all clear.
Okay, yep, whenever you're ready, if you'll send those, what we'll probably do, folks, is get those posted in a news item on our website and then just provide links to them from there. So we're not sending so many emails, but we will be able to email, not everyone, but everyone who registered via Eventbrite, because that's the people we have email addresses for. And we will send that out once we have both of them. Appreciate y'all joining. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Very, very packed.